On to this now. The fourth state witness in the Senzo Meyiwa Murder Trial. This is the South African Police Service's investigator and cell phone expert, Colonel Lambertus Steyn, is expected back in the witness box this morning in Pretoria. And yesterday, Steyn telling the court that his records suggest that none of the people in the house called the police or an ambulance when the footballer was shot and killed in October of 2014. Now, the first state witness, Zandile Khumalo, had previously testified that she tried to call 10111 but froze and ran to look for help from a neighbor instead. Let's remind you that 5 men are on trial accused of the murder. All right, let's get an update now, and Linda Mnisi is watching that space for us. He joins us live. Linda, good morning to you. Let's start with a quick recap of the highlights from yesterday's testimony and what we can look forward to today.
Well, one of the most important things, Oli, that came out of yesterday's proceedings was the concessions that were made by Colonel Steyn right towards the end of the proceedings yesterday. You will remember that cross-examination was now being conducted by Advocate Mshololo, who's representing Fiso Nduli. And it's interesting because Fiso Nduli has been placed at the center, along with accused number 3, Mthobisi Ncube, in the intricate web, really, that speaks of the communication that would have happened prior to Senzo Meyiwa being shot and killed. And one of the interesting points that many of us wanted to hear was, of course, the communication that alleged to have happened between himself as well as singer Kelly Khumalo, who had been dating Senzo Meyiwa at the time. And what the advocate Mshololo put to Colonel Steyn was, who that particular number belonged to. You'll remember this court was told that that number was used by Fiso Nduli to call Kelly Khumalo. But the question now was, who is it registered to? Does it belong to Fiso Nduli? And well, Colonel Steyn conceding that in fact it does not belong to Fiso Nduli. It's not registered, at least under his name or his address. He was further asked whether they had probed further to find out or establish who the number belonged to. And he said, well, we did not do so. So it is unknown at this point who the number could have belonged to at the time of these calls. You'll remember the court has previously heard that Fiso Nduli and Kelly Khumalo communicated first on the 2nd of August, secondly on the 15th of October. That was in the run-up to Senzo Meyiwa's murder. Further, he was also asked about whether or not the calls themselves point to any conspiracy to murder Senzo Meyiwa, and whether there was any unlawful conduct in launching a call to Kelly Khumalo. And he says, well, there was no unlawful conduct detected. What he can testify about is the fact that these calls were made and there was communication between the two numbers. So he's conceded also that Kelly Khumalo, you'll remember, is not an accused person in this case and has also not been listed as a state witness because, you'll remember, the state had already indicated that they don't intend on calling her to the witness stand. But for context then, it's important to also note that Colonel Steyn did indicate that he received the data of this particular cell phones and the cell phone that he was analyzing in 2020, in April of 2020. And this was what, 6 years down the line after Senzo Meyiwa was killed, and what he was asked then to do was to analyze those calls and establish a link between the accused person and also the people who were inside the house. This, he says, he did, and what he can testify about, Oli, is the fact that there was communication. And he was further asked whether there was any proof of conspiracy to murder with the communication that happened between Visokuhle Ntuli and accused number 3, Mthobisi Ncube, who was also placed at the center, Oli. And he says, well, there's no proof. So today, he's expected to be grilled further on the towers that have said to pick up those calls that we heard about in court.
Live for us at the Pretoria High Court, Mnisi, thank you very much for that update. We'll be keeping a close watch of that trial.